The program I'm going to work on today is already posted on Blackboard, right? So you will download it from there, create your own BlueJ project, or if you're working in Green, if you're working on in Notepad++, entirely up to you. This is how I'm going to operate today. Last week I gave you the whole class to work on an in-class lab, right? A few of you made the effort to complete the lab and come to me and show it to me during the week or during class, and that's how I'm going to mark it. The aim is to mark it in class, done and finished. I don't want to do any extra work and then you say, oh, your office hours don't match mine and I can show it to you. I'm emailing it to you, nothing of that happens. And in-class lab means you do it in class, you show it to me, I ask you questions, maybe a couple of questions on it so that I know you've done your own work and you get your marks. So they are not 15 or 20% work, maybe they are 2% or 3 or 5 depending upon their how much it has to be done, and you can take those marks, right? So today I'm going to work on arrays, and once I speak for an hour, I'm hoping I can finish it in an hour. I'll give you the rest of the time to complete the lab. If you complete it and you can show it to me, you get your marks, right? If you're not interested, that's perfectly fine.
What section are you posting?
I will post it under assignments. I will, right? I haven't yet opened it so that nobody sees it before the lesson, before the class. The only issue is, yes, students from the other section will be able to see it. That's the issue, but maybe I'll start thinking about it, maybe change it a little for them. So nobody sees it before. I do a class, I open it, you do it, you show it to me, you get your marks and you end up. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. Because I did hear some good comments about working in class last week. People were satisfied with that learning criteria, or however you want to say. But not many of you came to me and showed me your work, so I don't know. So I'm not sure that, are you thinking, okay, that's all that I'm interested in because it doesn't have a lot of marks, or she just said participation marks, I don't have to bother? It's up to you, right? To me, every percent counts. When I was a student, I wouldn't leave 1% also. So again, for today's work, if you can do it, finish it and show it to me, or show it to me in my office hour tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I'll still give you marks for it. Okay? But that's how it's going to work. I'm not getting whole load 80 into my and then giving feedback. Feedback is face to face. Right? You take your feedback, I tell you how I'll mark it, I'll be fair in my marking, and I can explain. Okay? So let's look at what an array is today. And what are we now doing? We've moved one step forward. So we've worked with variables, right? So I could store a value in a variable. So if I wanted to store my name, I could put it in a string variable. I wanted to store the age of a person, I could put it in a byte variable. So we've been working with variables and named constants for a while now, right? And each variable can only store a single value. Now, if I wanted to work with a group of values, for example, I wanted to save the name of the marks of all my students, right? So what would I do? I can create 35 variables if I want, but that's not how it goes, right? That's not how it should work. I should be able to work with a group of data, and this grouping of data, the first step, which is available in all languages, there is more to come. But the first step is that you can create an array. It's called an array in computer language. Okay, so there is a class called array with a capital A. There is a class called arrays with a capital A. But the array I am using and how I am using it today, I'll show it to you. It's not a class. I'm just using a data structure called array. So you had those basic data types in byte, float, char, and so on. You had those basic data types. Now you're going to work with a data structure. Structure means it can store more than one. So I'm going to demonstrate today how to create arrays, how to use them, how to pass them to function methods, how to get returns back from methods, and then use our usual loops if required. And then I'll give you a lab to do on what I'm teaching today. Right? And your job is to finish off that lab. And if you can show it to me in class, good, you get your marks. If you can show it to me in any of my office hours till Thursday, good, you get your marks. Otherwise, you don't get it. Clear? Okay, so let's look at, so this is what I'm now will do. I'll kind of get my program prepared so that I don't type in class. I save myself and you time. And we go ahead and I don't make mistakes and people say, oh, she's not prepared for class. The whole idea of hands-on is you do it with me, but maybe it's not working. Maybe while you're typing, you're not thinking. right? Whatever it is. Okay. So do not forget that named constants should be used in code. So if I say read 10 numbers, that magic number 10 should not appear anywhere in my code. So get into the habit of always using named constants if required. Not for each and everything, but if it makes sense. So what I've done is I've created that I'll be working with the maximum numbers 10. Why did I take this small number 10? Because then I have to give input. You know what I mean? Like the more I give, the more input I have to give. So I've taken a constant which is static. Why? Because main or whichever method uses it will be static, and I have to declare it as static. Final means it's a constant. Its value cannot change in the code. You cannot change it. That's what final means. Int means that it is an integer variable. I could have taken a byte also because 10 is a small value, but I left it kind of open so that if we have to increase it, we can kind of go there. So I've left it at byte. And another thing that I've done, which most of you do, but a couple of you still are making it local in every method, I've created a scanner object at the class level, which means any method can use this object. Instead of creating it locally inside every method I needed, maybe you need 10 methods and each method is reading something. I don't want to create 10 variables. Though, of course, when you call the method, it takes birth and dies. But why should I do that? I have a pencil that I keep here. I have a class object and all of you can use it. So it's usually a good habit to declare scanner at the class level. Okay, now let's see at the actual how do we use arrays and what it is. So an array is a collection of, a defined collection of elements of the same kind. So you can group elements of the same kind, all floats, all ints, all strings, all whatever you like. You can group, but the elements of the array have to be of the same kind, right? That's what an array is, collection. Two, very important. It has to have a fixed size before you run the program. So you have to give it a size. You can't say, oh, I don't know how many do I need. You can't do that. So if you need, you're kind of, I need somewhere between 80 to 100, you'll say I need 100. You'll pad it a little. You'll say, but that's a waste. You're being allocated memory for 100 and you only need 85 or 90. There is a better way of doing it. But when you start learning about grouping, you say, okay, I need 20 of these. I need 30 of these. I need 50. So it has to be a positive integer. How many do you need? Okay. It can be of type integer like I did. Maximum, how many do I need? It can be a short. It can be a byte, but it cannot be a long. Okay, so I need 10. Now let's see how do you declare an array. So for now, till now you've said int and you've given it a variable and then that's it. Now this is my first declaration. Please pay attention to what I'm saying. The type. The type comes on the left hand side and with int I've put empty square brackets. This means I'm declaring an integer array, right? That's what it means. I'm declaring an integer array. You could, if you like, put it with numbers also. So instead of putting the square bracket with int, you can put it with numbers also. But this is more used in Java world. And it's clear to read. You're saying, oh, numbers is an integer array. That's how you read it, right? You say numbers, it's a variable, right? And it's an integer array. So as soon as you say it's an integer array, and that's how you declare it to be an integer array, what you have now is a collection. But now this collection does not exist till you say give it to, right? So without the equal to, it's not even available. It does not exist. As soon as I say, oh, I need, how many do I need? I go new and I say, give me 10 of this integers. So what do you get? So you get a box. This box can hold a maximum of 10 integers. No more. Less, yes, but no more, right? And they are called. So now what are they called? They are called by default. This is what they are called. So this is what you get from that first statement. You get 10 blocks, each block capable of storing an int. In each one of these, you can store an int. And how many of these do you get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You get 10 of these. The name of the array is numbers. But you'll say, suppose I want to talk to the fourth one or to the ninth one. How do I call them? Like I can call them numbers. Not 10 of them can be called numbers. So each one of them is called with an index. The first value of this box is called numbers 0. That's the name of the first box. The name of the second box is numbers 1, and so on. And the name of the last box is numbers 9. So the index starts from 0. So this index can be an integer, a short, a byte. It cannot be a float. It cannot be a string. It can be a char. You can go from a char to int in Java. So if I give 65, it will, and I declare it to be a char variable, char ch is equal to 65, it will automatically convert it into a, which is not right. So I'll have to look for a number. But that 65 is a capital A, right? You can use characters. Forget about it. Don't even go there. It has to be a number, a positive number. Okay. So that's the name of the first child. So I basically say that an array is a family, right? It is a family, and these are siblings of that family. So the first child is called numbers 0. The second one is called numbers 1. Numbers 2, numbers 3, numbers 4, numbers 9. That's all. So you can index, the index can go from 0 to 9. Those are its valid values. If you try to go numbers 11 or numbers 10 or numbers -1, you will get an exception. It will throw an exception. It will say, index out of reach, right? So an array is a defined fixed collection of elements of the same kind. That's what an array is. How do you declare it? I've given you 3 examples. In the first one, I've declared an array that can store 10 whole numbers. Why? Because it is an integer array. And I've used the word new to create space for that array, right? In the second one, I didn't do new. I created a float array and I initialized it like this. By default, this array has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. It has 5. Notice 8.5f. Why do I put an f? Because it's float. 4 is an integer. You can just put it in a floating array. Automatically it's allowed. But as soon as you put a point, you have to use f with it. That's my third element. That's my fourth element. And that's my fifth element. So you could do new and then put these values afterwards. But I've kind of created a hard-coded array. So this array called marks has size 5. No more. I cannot do anything else with this array. So you can only store 5 numbers in this. You can change it. If you feel afterwards, you can change marks 0 from 8.5 to something else. It's just an assignment statement, right? The only thing you have to understand in arrays is how do I use it? You use it with the name of the array, and in square brackets, you use an index value. That index value starts from 0. The minimum is 0, and the maximum is size -1. Right? Because the numbering has started from 0. Look at my third array. I neither did a new nor did I initialize it using curly brackets. So basically, this does not exist. So if I try to do something, if I try to put a statement like system out println names 0, I'll get an error. So numbers is defined, marks is defined, but names is just a declaration. There is no storage to it. It's just a declaration. You're saying, oh, I need some names. I need an array called names. But notice if I try to do something like this out of the blue, and you'll say, oh, names exist, and I want to see its 0th element. I try to, oops, spelling is wrong. And I try to compile this program, it's going to bark. It's going to say, where is names 0? You didn't even give any space to it. How can I use it? Right? Let's try it. So I didn't put that in the code because this is incorrect, but I wanted to show it to you. So let's do it and let's compile it. Here, see, I have an error. What is it saying? It's saying you have not initialized your names. So how can you initialize your array? There are 2 ways you can initialize your array. Either you go new and you ask for space. So you get new array. It has 10 space. You will say, but what's inside it? For your information, if it is numeric, they're all zeros. If it is an object means string is an object, then they're all null values. Null is a special value, which means there is nothing. It's not empty. It means there is nothing. It does not exist. Right? So when you initialize an array, in the first one, this array, when I did a new, I got 10 elements, and I have written a loop here. I've written a loop here to show you that it contains all zeros. So you didn't put anything into it. All you've done is you've asked for a box which has 10 slots in it. So when I print it out, it will print all zeros for me. Right? What about this one? When I try to print this out, it will print 5 elements for me. 8.5, 4, 6.75, 3.5, and 10. Right? When I try to print something of this, it's going to bark. I have a compilation error because I neither asked for space for it, neither did I initialize it. So there are two ways in which you can basically initialize an array. One, use the new keyword and say, I need these many boxes. In that case, you will get those many boxes, but they are all empty. Empty means they have a default value. All numbers will be initialized to 0. I think if it is a Boolean array, it will all be false. If it is a character array, all of them will have a null character. If it is an array of objects, you'll say, we haven't done objects. What's an object? String is a class, and anything that you declare of type string is an object. It is null by default. And if you don't do either of this, neither initialize it using new, nor you put curly brackets and give it some values, then you cannot use it. It does not exist. Okay? So that will give me an error, and therefore I can't use it without doing anything. So if you want to put it there for yourself, sure, but I can't do it. This will give me a compilation error. And look at the error. If you bring your mouse over it, it will tell you variable names might not have been initialized. And that's exactly what it says. You've told me it is a string array, but you never asked for space for it, and you haven't used the curly brackets to initialize it, so it does not exist. Right? So this statement will give you a syntax error. So you cannot use an array unless you have either asked for space for it like this before use. So you'll see you haven't done it, but I'll do it before I use it. Okay? Or you have initialized it this way. Now, this way of initializing is only useful when you exactly know what values you want in that array. Like, for example, maximum marks of my assignments. I know the first assignment is out of 20, the second is out of 25, the third is out of 75. So I make an array of maximum marks. That way, when I take your percentage or weightage, I can quickly use that array. Okay? And we are talking about single dimensional arrays. They are multi-dimensional now. So we'll come to that next week. So single dimensional array means it's just like a list. That's what it is. It's just a list, nothing else. Okay? Okay, so let's see how it works. So this first one, what did I do? I wanted to show you that you have, how can you access it? And notice, this is how you access it. The counter has to start from 0, and you can go till maximum numbers minus 1. And this for loop will print out 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 as many printf. I've used a printf and I've used tabs in between. So I'm showing you the value of the counter, and I'm showing you the value of the array. So let's run it and compile it and run it. So one by one job at a time, one run and one. What am I doing? This is what you got from that for loop. So you have to exactly know how many elements in my array. And that's a drawback if you kind of think of it, but that was the only data structure that was available in programming languages 2 decades back. Now we have more. But this was the only data structure of how you could collect data. So the compiler, before you run the program, you have to tell how many in my box. So I said there are 10 in your box. I didn't initialize them to anything. I just said give me a new box. And notice by default, they're all initialized to 0. So you can check if it was a character array, what would be in it. If it was a float array, what would be in it. If it was a string array, what would be in it. You can check for all. So change that int to double, float, char, boolean, and so on, and double check what is its default value, right? So I have now a box called numbers. It can store 10 numbers in it. Each number has a name. Numbers 0, numbers 1, numbers 2, numbers, and so on till numbers 9. No more, not out of index. If I try to do something out of index, and I'll show you how. Suppose I put an equal here. What happens to my counter? The counter will also say, oh, start from 0 and go until 10. I'm using 10, which is not applicable here. Because the total size is 10, but the names of the sibling is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'll get again an error. When I run this program, I'll again get an error. I cannot go beyond my capacity. It's like a glass. You have a glass, you fill it with water. You have a 500 ml bottle. How much water can you put in it? 500 ml. right? So let's try this now. So all I did was I purposely changed the relational operator to less than equal to. Let's compile it. What's wrong with my BlueJ? I've heard people complaining about, oh, it's running, that's why. See here, it's running. So I have to stop it and then I'll compile it again. Hopefully it took my change. Yeah, okay, now let's run it again. And I'm going to get, here, notice, do you see the error? Java lang array index out of bounds exception. You'll say that doesn't mean a lot of sense to me, but kind of think of it. What does it say? It's saying you've gone out of bounds. The boundary was from 0 to 9. You asked for 10 elements. I gave you 10 elements. The boundary, the first is 0, the last is 9. You went out of bounds. I can't put. So that tells you that the array has a fixed size. So you can call it a disadvantage, but that's fine. That's how it works. And they're very useful if you exactly know how many you need. So if I have a class of 40, and I know it can go beyond 40, it would be a little less, but not beyond, I'll create an array of 40. Okay, got it? So that's arrays out of bounds exception. I can handle it. I can, these red marks that you see, which are not too good for the user, we'll learn how to handle it, but I think you do exception handling in course 2. If I get time, I'll introduce you to it. The whole thing is fundamental, has so much in it that I can do everything with you. But in the long run, you will. So you cannot use an equal here. Does that make sense? So I only have 10 blocks in which I can put whatever I like, and I will. Okay, now I knew that there were 10 because that was a constant. So I used a for loop to do that. Now I don't know how many are there in my second array. I don't want to count it. I don't want to go and say, oh, Marx has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. So I'll use a for loop and go on till 5. You can ask the array to tell you how many elements are there. And this can be done every array object. You're creating an array object, okay? So I'm not using a class called array. I'm not using a class called arrays. But when you're, even this way, you're creating an array object. It's not a variable. It's not a data type now like int, float, double. It's an object. By default, every array object knows its own length and stores it in a length variable, a variable called length. So if I want to see how many in my marks, I'll say there are %d elements in the marks list. And look at how I'm showing you. Marks dot length. The name of the object dot the name of the instance. You can kind of just in your head, it's not a method, you can just say, I can ask the question of you, how many are there? So it's like asking how much money do you have in your wallet? Kind of, right? Something like that. Or how many classes do you have today? So you know the answer. How do you know the answer? Because you open up your timetable, you count the classes, and you say, oh, I have these many classes. So that's exactly what the array is doing. So when you're asking the array marks to ask, how many elements do you have? Then you can say marks dot length. No opening closing bracket. It's just length. The word is length. It's a variable. And it will say, oh, I have 5 inside. You will say, how did it get 5? Remember, I had initialized it using curly brackets. So if I had asked this question of my numbers list, what would it return to me? 10. Why? Because I had said new int 10. And marks will return me 5 because I have initialized it using the curly brackets. So let's see, does it give you 5 as the answer? Because that's what the elements are. And then notice, I didn't know how many, but I used a for loop and I printed it out. So basically, I started with 0. I went till marks length -1, so which means it is less than 0. And if it is, you'll say, then why are you using this if inside it? Because it's only going till wherever. Here I'm saying, I'm just putting a comma. This was in your assignment last week when I said show me the numbers in the same list. Some of you came up and kind of showed me the list like this, which was not wrong but untidy. And you had an extra comma after the 10. So I don't want that comma after the last element. So I'm saying if you are the last element, if you are not the last element, put a comma. Otherwise, don't put a comma. That's all. That's the if. It's a simple if. You'll say, oh God, so particular, it's so finicky. Of course, comma means something else is coming. Comma is not the right thing to use at the end of the list. So an extra if statement just not to put the comma? Yes. The answer is yes. You have to do it. You can take your user lightly. You say, oh, that's the answer. What's wrong in it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Does the extra comma bite you? Yes, it does bite you. So to remove it, all I've done is, if you're not the last element, how do I know you're not the last element? I check that the counter, the value of counter is not the second last. Why do we do a -1? Because it starts from 0. I put a comma, otherwise I don't. So let's see, does it print it out for me? The 5 values that I have in float. So let's compile it. Let's go back, let's go back, let's go back. And there it is. That's the output of that for loop. So it says there are 5 elements in the marks. That magic number 5 has come from marks.length. I didn't count it. I asked the system to do it for me. So length is available with every array object, and it tells you how many, what is the size of it. Not how many, what is the size. For example, in the first one, you may not fill up all the 10, but the length is still 10. You may only use 5 of it. And so what happens to the rest? 0. But they're still in memory. You've been given a box that can contain 10. If you only use 5 out of it, the rest 5 are not eaten up by the system. They're still sitting there. So length will give you the total size. How many in them? You'll have to again use logic and do it yourself. Okay? You can use a counter. When you read, you can say, oh, I've read 1, I've read the second one, I've read the third one, I've read the fourth. And that's what I'm doing. Now, we'll come to that, how many names you want to store from where is it. So is that clear? So one way by saying new and getting as many as you want. The second way by using the curly brackets and initializing a comma separated list, and automatically that becomes the elements in this. And I printed them out. It will do very odd. And that if statement was just so that you don't see that comma. Many of you were doing it last week, and I've shown you how to remove that comma. Okay? In the last one, just don't put the comma. Okay, now let's stop it again and let's go forward. Is it clear? You will please ask me any questions you need to ask, so that when I give you the assignment, you don't come back with questions to me for something I've already done in class. Okay, now till here we've printed our array which has all zeros because I haven't put anything in it. We've printed the array of marks which had floating numbers in it. Now the third job. The third job says, oh, you also declared an array called names. You just declared it. You never asked how many names. Now, the third way of kind of asking for space for an array is you don't want to use a constant. You're not sure how many. You don't want to put it in curly brackets. That's also okay. You can ask the user, how many do you want? So notice my question. How many names do you want to store? And I read it from the user. And then I flush the input buffer for further input. Remember, whenever I read a number and I press the enter key, that is still sitting in my buffer. So always after reading any number, I always flush my buffer so that future inputs are not affected. Just make it a habit. Though there is another way of doing it, but this is, you have to do it. This is the easiest and the correct way. There's nothing wrong in this. Okay. So I asked how many names do you want to store, and notice now, names is equal to new string. And I put the total names in there. Now I can use names. Now it is defined. So you can use a constant. You can use the curly brackets to initialize it and give it as many values as you want. Or you can ask the user how many do you want, and after that how many do you want, again use new. So now this is not a constant, but I've asked the user before I use it. Right? So what does this do? Looks very similar to the first int numbers. The only difference here is it's now saying new string, and then it says how many. So an array can store integers, an array can store floats. An array can store string objects, which means an array can store anything. Any basic data type, any object. We've only done strings, so we are using a string. Now, what is this array capable of doing? This array can store as many as you say. If you say 20, it can store 20. If you say 2, it will do 2. But don't try to give it a negative number. Try it, I mean. But if you give a negative number, this new statement will bark. It will say, I cannot create an array with size -2. So that has to be a positive. Okay, I haven't done any check, but I'm telling you, but of course, when you start programming, you will say, oh, that number cannot be negative. It has to be a number greater than 1 at least. If you only wanted 1, why did you use an array was the whole big question, right? So let's try it. So this question is being asked of me, how many do you want? And then for your information, I've spit out that array. And you're looking at a new for loop. This is called the enhanced for loop, which is used with arrays very commonly. So I'm not saying start at 0. Go on till total names -1. Increment every time. This for loop is an enhanced for loop, which will do this. It will take one element at a time out of this array called names, put it in this variable name. It will start at position 0, will go on till end -1, and it will split it. You don't have to say where to start, where to end, increment it. This is therefore it is called an enhanced for loop. It's smart. So the format of this enhanced for loop is for the name of the variable colon the collection on the right hand side. Names is a collection. It's an array. It's a collection. So it will automatically pick up one element from the beginning of the collection to the end of the collection automatically, and all you're doing is printing it out. But you'll say, what is in my array? I just told you, if it is an array of objects, by default, its value will be null. You will see null, 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 null. Like you saw 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 in an integer array. This is an array of objects. You will see null, 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 null. It's not defined. There's null in it. So you can check if names 0 is equal to null. You can check the value, what's inside you. So I'm going to print it out. So now I'm going to show you till here. How does it work till here? So I'm going to ask how many names do you want to store. Then I'm going to create an array of that size. And then I'm going to show you what's in that array. Okay. So let's compile it again. Please ask questions anytime you have a doubt. Hopefully you are not typing and listening. This program is already on Blackboard. So you can ask questions and listen to me. That way I'm hoping that I'm doing some of your work, which you don't go home and do and redo or listen to my lecture again. Okay, so let's go and open it up. So now it's saying, how many numbers do you want to store? Let me try a negative number, -5. Quite silly. Can names ever be negative? I want to store -5 numbers. Okay, let's see, what does it do? It says, what are you trying to do? You're trying to give, it's an error. Negative array size exception. Quite helpful. It's saying, how can an array be of a negative size? Right, so you again get an error. And this is runtime errors. Please keep in mind, runtime's errors are different from compilation errors. Runtime's error, stop your program right there. The program has stopped. So it was here. So till here it was okay. It gave you those zeros. It showed you the array, float array. Then when you gave it a value of -5, it said, what are you trying to do? Are you making a fool of me? You're saying, give me an array to store whose size is -5. It's like saying, can the number of students in my class be -5? Is that possible? No. So the size of an array cannot be a negative. So we know how to kind of ask for and make it be a positive value. So to improve, let me run it without anything first. So this time I'll behave myself and I'll run it correctly. So when it says, how many names do you want to store? I'm going to say 5 or 10 or 7, whatever. I'll give a positive number. Notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You got an array of size 7. And by default, as I've already mentioned, by default, each value in that array is null. Null is a reserved word spelled like N-U-L-L. It is not text. It is a special value, which means I'm not defined. That's what it means. I'm not defined. I'm not empty is different. I'm not defined. So you can't ask what's inside it. You can ask, are you null? And it will say yes. But you can't ask what's inside you. Because what's inside me means I must be defined. But are you null? I can say yes or no. Okay? So an integer array by default or a numeric array has zeros. A Boolean array, if I'm not mistaken, has false. A character array, each character is a null character. The first in the ask I said, that's called the null character. It's not printable. And we just found out an array which has objects inside it. By default, all its value is right. Okay. Now I behaved myself. I said 7. Now starts a loop. It says, oh, okay, you want to input 7 names? Sure, go ahead, start putting them. Please input the names. A maximum of 7 can be given. How did I get this magic number 7? I used this 7 that I had given here. I've used it in my code by the length of my array. I don't have to remember anything. Oh, how much did I give? The length of the array was 7. You have the option to quit anytime by entering end. So it's asking for 7 names now. And there are 2 options. You can give 7, no more. Or if you want to give less than 7, input the name as end and it will stop. Now this is a new kind of while loop you see. This is called using a sentinel value to end your input. Sentinel means how do I end? Suppose I'm saying, oh, read the age of some persons, right? Can the age ever be negative? No. So I'll say stop while age is not equal to -1. So when you use a value to stop a loop, we say we use a sentinel value. And for me, end was nobody's name can be end, kind of. Or you could use quit, or you could use like something that cannot be the name of a person. When you are taking the age of persons, you can use -1 to stop. If you're taking marks and I say all marks are above 0, you can take 0 to stop, or -1 to stop because marks cannot be negative. So you have to think of a sentinel value. When you cannot think of any sentinel value, then you will say, do you have another element? Yes. Okay, give me. Do you have another element? Yes. Okay. Then you'll have to ask an extra question. If you can't think of any sentinel value, then you have to ask the question. Another value? Yes, no, user says you check the loop. Another value? Yes. Another value? Yes. So you can stop a loop. So the for loop, you can do a certain number of times. You've done while loops also. You've said while something is less than or equal to 0, greater than or equal to something. You've done your checking using while loop. But here is another example of while loop, which is reading values from the user and it stops when the user inputs end. And in any case, why? Because I'll show you why. Right? So now I am putting data inside my array. So my numbers is an array of all zeros. Marks has some values already in it. Names for now only has null, but as soon as I start putting data, you can populate your array, but only with strings. Anything you input will be saved as a string. Okay. So let's put names. Let's put some names. Now at the first name itself, if I put end, you're asking me for input and I put end. Okay, what does it say? It says you have decided to end the input. No names were provided. I didn't give it any names. So now the size is 7. Please don't forget the size of the array is 7. You have been allocated 7, but there is nothing inside. So how do I check that? How do I know? You can check the value of the first one. If it is null, that means the rest are empty. I mean, they're all null. Or put a counter yourself. Every time you read from the user, increment the counter. Increment the counter. So you'll know, oh, I read 5 minutes, I read 6 minutes, I read 8 minutes, and I'll do that. I'll show you in a minute. So that's the third way of creating an array. Ask the user how many, do the new to get it, and now populate. Okay, so let's look at that loop, how I did it. How did I write this loop of ending with end? Okay, so the first thing that we can improve is when you ask for how many names here, how many names do you want to store, and you want it to be a positive value, we'll put it in a do while loop. We'll go do while the value of total names is less than, so negative 0 also doesn't make sense. I mean, logically you say I only need 0 elements. So basically that doesn't make sense. 1, it's okay, but why would you create an array of size 1? So while the value of total names is less than or equal to 0, keep on asking. So now if there is something wrong, we'll put a error message. So I've prompted, how many names do you want to store? If these total names that you've given me, now I can take this int and put it outside now, because every time, now remember, this int is only available in this loop. This is called block scope. It's only available in that block. If you recollect, we had talked about class scope, a method scope, which is local. Now this is a block scope. It's only available in this block. So if total names value that you give me is less than or equal to 0, then what am I going to do? I'm going to put an error message for you. I'm going to say invalid input. The number of names to be stored should be greater than, let me not do this because then you will copy me. I'm going to use a name constant. I'm going to use a name constant called minimum size or whatever, minimum names. I'm going to use this variable because if I don't do it, you just copy and paste in your assignment, and then you're not thinking, oh, I can use it everywhere. Yes, you can use it everywhere. Right? So I read from the user. If it is less than minimum names, I give a message. The number of names to be stored, spelling is completely wrong. To be stored should be greater than 0, and it will keep asking. We've already done this loop. We've done it many times. You've done it many times in your assignment and so on. But it says, who's this minimum names? So we'll take that from here. We'll go back where we've declared our constants right at the top. We'll create another variable by that name, constant by that name. It's an int. You could take it to be a byte. And we'll give it a value of 0. There, job done. Let's see if it compiles. Oops, 4 errors. What have I missed? Oh, printf. Not a print statement, printf. And I have to be careful. I have to put a %n here, otherwise it will look very untidy. Right? Sometimes you don't pay attention to these small things. So every time it says how many names do you store, it will take a value, then it will give an error message and go to a new line. And it will ask again. It has to ask again. So which means, oh, this is a do while. Okay. So read less than show. Go back, read less than show. And you can always say auto layout and it will adjust your brackets. What isn't it like? Cannot find symbol total names. What did I call it? Oh, because it's inside. No, there it is, total. Did I misspell it? No. So it doesn't like it to be declared inside because it's using it in while. But that's strange. Anyway, take that int total names. I'll just put it outside if that's why it is complaining. Edit auto layout. Okay. Expected, and I'll remove the int from here. There. TOTAL, NAMES, minimum names. So basically, how many names do you want to store? And always tell the user that the value should be greater than 0. Input a number greater than equal to, oh, we'll have to use a printf here also now. See, that's how you do. You have to use it everywhere. How many names do you want to store? And you can kind of put a question mark here. And then input a number greater than or equal to, and we'll do a %d here. On %d, oops, %d, and then put a comma. Take your minimum names. That's how constants are used everywhere. The whole purpose is you've declared it once and you can use it any times you want, any number of times. So how many names do you want? Input a number greater than or equal to 0, it will say. So you have to input a number greater than or equal to 0. Otherwise, it won't let you move forward. It will give you an error message and ask again. It will give you an error message and ask again. Give an error message and ask again. Let's try it. There. Now this saves me. Now I won't have an error that it cannot be negative. I won't get that error because I have ensured that user gives me a positive. Right? And why do I use a do while? Why don't I use a while? Because you're going to ask once for sure. So do while is saying, okay, ask and then check. When would I use a while? When for while I have to ask first and then check. Then I have to read it once. Input is required once. So why not use a do while? So now I've taken care that you cannot give me that I need negative number. I've taken care of that. And I've also shown you they were all null. And now let me kind of show you these two methods. How do I get the names of the user from the user and how do I display it? So I have created a get names method to which I'm passing that value of total names, how many. And whatever that returns to me, I'm saving it in a variable of type array, which you haven't ever done. You returned ints, you've returned floats, you've returned voids, but you can return an array. You can return an array. You say, how is that possible? Because array is a reference type. It doesn't return all these elements to you. It returns the address where this array is saved. Arrays are reference types in Java. So when you're working with arrays, you're not making copies of data like you do in basic data types. You're passing the address where that array is. So when you pass an array as a parameter, you're passing the address. When you receive an array back from a method, you're saying, oh, there is where it is. It just tells you it's saved in there, in that method. So arrays are reference types. And the basic data types that you have done till date are called value types. So the box has the value. The value is inside the box. So if I have int I is equal to 10, the 10 is inside the box. It's called a value box. Whereas array, if it is an array, and we've called it, say, names, what will names contain? It will contain the address of where those names are stored. So it contains an address. This is called a reference, and this is called a value box. So there is difference between value boxes and reference boxes. Till now, you were always using value boxes, but string is a reference. Why? Because string is again not a basic data. So when you create a string, and I create a normal string called name, and I give it the name Anju, for example, this is what happens. A box with name is created, but Anju doesn't go inside it. Anju is saved somewhere else. And the address of this memory block is saved here. String is also a reference box. Why? Because string is a class and name is a string object. So anytime it is an object, it is a reference block. An array is an object. So it is a reference. Right? So now let's look at this get names method. And notice on the left-hand side is the name of an array. You'll say, how do you return that array? You just use a normal return statement. So let's go to get names now. What is get names doing? It's a very simple method. It's only asking for names. So look at my comments. This method inputs names from the user or prompts for names. The user can input, the user can input up to a maximum of total names, this value, whatever you give it, 7, 8, 10, whatever it is, but can quit by entering end at any point before the maximum. I'm going to use, I'm saying, oh, okay, I said I need a box of 10 maybe, but there are only 8 students in my class today. Maximum. I haven't made many changes, but whatever changes I make, I'll put it back on Blackboard, right? Anything in comments. Let's look at the get names method. The first thing I want you to notice, look at its return type. This is new for you. You've returned int, float, doubles, void. I can return an array. So if I read all the names in this method, put them in a local array, and return the address of that array back to my main, the main will pick it up from there. So you can return more than one values from a method. Till now I was saying a method only returns a value. It is here also actually returning a value, the address of the box. It is still returning a value, the address of the box. Now the box has numbers inside, but it is still returning you the address of the box. So now it's a normal reading. So I'm saying please input the names, a maximum of %d can be given, and that %d will be total names. I've created a local array called names, has nothing to do with that names, nothing. You can call it whatever. Local array is created, a counter is created, a string is created. I ask for the name using the next input line. I trim it just in case you give me blank, 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 blank. You've already done the trim. If the length of the name, which is a string, this is a method, length is a method. If the length of the string is equal to 0, you have not provided a name, hence will not be saved. Otherwise, if it is not equal to end, and notice the method, equals ignore case. Doesn't matter how you enter end. END, capital, small, combination, doesn't matter. The word is end. What I'm looking for is end. If it is not end, if it is end, I tell you, oh, you have decided to end by input by entering end. Otherwise, I just save it. Else, I just save it. And notice how am I saving it. So I started with counter equal to 0. Here, my initial value was 0. I read the name from the user. I checked that the name was not empty. And if the name was not empty, I put it in my names local array. Please keep in mind, a method is independent. It has nothing to do with who is calling it. This method, get names, takes an int value, how many names to read, how many, and returns an array. That returns an array it creates locally. It created a local array called names of that size, read it from you, populated that array with data. Here is the population. Now it may look a little odd, but notice what have I done. You have to start learning new things. So that's the name of the array. Each child is put in square brackets. Counter I started with 0. So the first time it will go in names 0. Whatever name you have provided me will be saved, and counter will be incremented up by 1. So instead of writing it in 2 lines, I'll put it together in one lines. This, if it confuses you, this is actually just this. Put it in the counter value and increment counter up by 1. So it goes in the first one, oops, 3 of them. It goes in the first one, 0. Whatever name you give is saved or assigned, and then counter goes up by 1. Now you know how many names you've read. Right? So you can keep a counter for yourself. And then look at my while condition. And why have I written the counter should be less than 10 or whatever, total names, because I can go beyond. And that's my first condition. You cannot put more than what the array can say. So that's my first condition. And my second condition is, oh, you didn't enter an end, keep on going. So while it is not end and the size is less than or equal to what you say it is, it will keep on asking. But this is important that you write this condition first and this condition afterwards. Why? Because and if you put this afterwards and it goes out of bounds, it will create a problem. So and is a short circuit and. It checks the condition. If it is false, it won't even check the second condition. So you're saying check, is the value of counter less than total names? Yes, if it is less than total names, then check, oh, did you give anything? So sometimes it is very important that how you write the condition, you just don't combine them and think, oh, what should I do first and then next and then. Short circuit ands will stop as soon as they know the truth. Here it may not matter at all because this is only checking if it is end. But maybe if you were saving something in your array, this would create a problem if you put this before checking, oh, I've gone out of range. So I'm writing it the proper way so that you say, oh, I checked the size, oh, the size is okay, and it is not an end, go back and ask again. Right? So this loop, the do while loop is saying, while you have not read all the names, and the name is not end. So it will stop on either condition. So if you give your name as end, it will stop. If you keep giving names, it can take a maximum of whatever you tend to do. And when all this job is done, see how smartly what have I done. If you did not give me anything, if my counter value was 0, I return a null. You can return null because your return type was an array, and array is an object, and null is a valid value for the object. Like 0 says, oh, the number is 0. Null is a valid value for an object. It says, I'm not defined. So I check. If the counter is 0, that means the first name itself you gave me was end. I return null, otherwise I return you the array. I say, here, take it. And actually it doesn't return the array, the box. It just returns the address of the box. So when I say return null, I'm saying it's not even defined. You didn't give me any name, right? So my job is done. So this method allows you to read names. And then lastly, what do? I display them. I pass the names. I could do an if here, unless I've done a check in my display names. See, here I've checked in my display. If what is coming to you is not null, then you give the list of names, else no names were provided. I can actually call the method. I can do that check here itself. Why even call the method? Here, let's do it right here. So we'll say if names is not equal to null. That's how you check it, like this. Call the method. Else, you can give your message right here itself. I mean, it's up to you how you want to do it. Both are logical. Both are correct. I checked it in there. I did a checking here. But you can check, before calling, you can check. I checked it here. If it is null, I say list of names and I show you all the names. Else I say no names are private. Both are correct. Checking it before you call the method or checking it in the method means the same thing. But the first one will save you a call. Why are you even asking me, do you want some money when you have nothing in your own pocket? You know what I mean? So do you want money? I don't have any money and I'm asking you, do you want any money? So to check before even calling a method is better. Else you always check. Do you have something in names? Yeah, you do have. See how I've used an enhanced for loop? Picked up one item at a time from this array, put it in a local variable, and I spit it out. And it will show me all the names. Else I say no names were provided. So you can either do it here or before calling also you can do it. Whatever, both will work. So if I wanted to do it, I can take this else from here. And I can put it here. So if names is not equal to null, then only call the display methods. Call a method to print the list of names. And notice I've passed them as a parameter. I can pass an array as a parameter. A method can return an array. A method can take the array. This is called arguments. Some of you came to me for the loops assignment saying, what is an argument? Names is being passed as an argument. So if it is not equal to null, I'll display it. Else I'll say no names were provided. This argument names is copied into this parameter called names. Again, same names doesn't matter. And now this if I can remove from here because I've already checked it there. So I only call the method if the names is not null. So notice the parameter list. Familiar? Main parameters are like that. In main, you say string array and you call it args. Main can take any number of string arguments. And that's exactly what it says here. Names is an array. You say, what about the size? When it is passed, names, whatever is coming from wherever it is coming, this will automatically take its size. So it is like n. So if I'm sending 7 names, the size is 7. If I'm sending 10, the size is 7. And if you want, I can show you. You can say list of names and you can say there are these many names in the list. It's just a print statement. You can just print it right here. Same way as you have done before. System.out.println. You entered or these many names were entered. Let's do a printf. %d names were entered. And then I'll put a %n because otherwise it doesn't go on a different line. Put a comma and then whatever array you've passed me, I'm going to ask to I'm asked to ask the array, show me your length. How many are you? So these many names were entered and then will come the list of names. Let's see if it works. So now see, you say 7 names, it will show you 7 or whatever. But now you have to be a little careful about this is if you enter less than 10 whatever names, then it will show you the names and null. Whatever you didn't fill up will come up with that. That can be avoided. Another if statement and you can avoid it. But let's run it, how it runs. Let's see how it runs. So notice an array, a method can return an array. This is new for you. And a method can take an array. This is new for you. Right? So let's try it. And let's behave and give right values. But now we've put an if loop, so it should work. So when I go and run it, okay, it says how many names do you want to store? Input a number greater than or equal to 0. Try a -5 now. It will ask again. See? The number of names to be stored. Try another -12. Really doesn't matter what you try. Now if I say, oh, I want to save 5 names. It will say, okay, start. What's your first name? I've already shown you if it is end, it will say no list. I'll go AA, BB, and I'll do an end. Notice how neatly it is saying. Please input name 1. Please input name 2. It's also showing you the numbers because I'm using the counter. And again, this was in your loops assignment also. It said, please ask for the numbers with the number. Which number are you asking? First number, second number. This is in my loop. Now I'm going to end. Okay. So I only have 2 names, AA and BB and end. But when it prints it out, notice it prints out AA and BB were filled and the rest of the 3 are null because my size was 5. You say that looks odd. I only entered 2 names and you're showing me all the names. I can improve it. It's not a big deal at all. Instead of an enhanced for loop, what will you do? So the enhanced for loop was easy. So I copied it. Now I know how many. Did it show how many? It should have shown 5. Oh, the length will remain 5. Oh, can't do much about it. But I can write an if statement and I say if it is null, stop. Don't write after that. So you can only show the first. If it is not null, print it. If it is not null, print, and then it won't print the rest. So I can improve the printing, but the length is 5. The length is 5 because that's what you asked for. That's what you asked for. So this 5 is coming from where, just to show you, because you entered, I want 5. So here now, to improve it, we can say if name is not equal to null, print it. Now it won't print null, null, null. It will only print AA and B. But suppose there were 1,000 names and I only input 100. Imagine. The first 100 are printed, but the last 900 are still, the loop is still going on for 1,000 times. Can we improve it? Sure we can improve it. There are ways of doing everything in programming, but you learn step by step. So today's lesson was, how do I declare an array? How do I initialize an array? How do I read values into an array? How do I spit out the values? That's what you learned today with 1 dimension. You worked with an int array, though I didn't use it. You worked with a float array, all I did was I showed it on the screen. But you really worked with a string array where I read something, saved it in the array, and then I split it. Right? So this was your lesson on arrays, 1-dimensional arrays. If you need to ask me any questions, now is the time to ask. Anything that's not clear. This program is with you. I've kind of improved it a little, so I'll put it black on blackboard for you. All I did was, so now if I run it, the nulls will not come. That's how it will improve in its quality. Right? So store a number. Suppose if I give 5, just to be again the same thing. So I give AA and a BB, and then I give an end. My output will remove that 5 names were entered because that's the size of the array. That's not what was entered. But notice now I don't see the nulls because I said if you're not null, only then. Right? So I should remove that message because it's a misleading message. It's the size of the array. It's not how many you entered. It's a misleading message. So that was just to show you, you can use it like it came as a parameter. You can just kind of spit it out. But that's a misleading one. It's not how many did you enter. It is how many did you ask for originally. So keep in mind with an array, has a name, has blocks, 0 to length minus 1. That's what its size. So size is length, 0 to length minus 1 are its index values. So length gives you the size of the array, The first index is 0, the last index is length minus 1. You can only fill an array till what you have. You can't go beyond. If you go beyond, you get array out of index bound exception. You're going out of bound. Array can be of type numeric, or array can be of type Boolean, character, or objects, and strings are objects. Okay? You can pass arrays as parameters, as arguments to methods that take them as parameters. You can return arrays from them. So at the end of the day, my main is again nothing but calls to methods. Right? So things that should be done in methods. Okay? So now I removed that message just because it was very misleading, and I'll open up your assignment now for you. But you can ask me questions. Now for the lab again, you can ask each other for help. You can go on Google and look for help. You can ask me questions while you do it. But when you come to show it to me and I ask you something out of your code and you don't have an answer for it, you're not getting your marks. That means you didn't do it yourself. Okay, so even if you're taking help from a friend, please understand it. If you're taking help from me, please understand it. That's the bottom line. Okay. So I'm going to open it. I would highly recommend you to download it, and then I'll close it in 5 minutes because the other section doesn't see it. Just for that reason, nothing else. So under, where did I keep it? I think under assignments. I made a folder called, no, I didn't. Where have I kept my labs? Oh, there it is, class labs. Under weekly learning, there is class labs. The first lab is already done. The second one I'm going to open for you. It is practicing array. Please download it. I'll give you 5 minutes for it, and then I'll close it again for the simple reason that the other section has to do it tomorrow. And I request you not to share the lab with the other section. So if somebody says, what did you do today? You say, I don't know. If you want to share, that's up to you. They get extra marks. They have to pay it beforehand. Okay? So that's a document. The document tells you what to do. I'll go through the document with you. No, I don't want to save it. I just want to open it. Gosh, this has been happening and will happen for ages. So I'm going to go where I saved it on my local computer. Okay, here it says, write a well-documented program. So it's for you. You're trying to learn arrays for the first time. So document your code that calculates the average of real numbers that are stored in a list or an array. So basically, you're working with a real array, right? Something that I had for my marks. The list can have up to a maximum of 10 numbers. So its size is 10. Maximum is 10. Each number of the list must be greater than or equal to 0. You're only storing positive numbers in it. Okay. Now, what are the requirements? Use an array to store the numbers. Don't create 10 variables for me. I say this because in the midterm, I said, you are allowed to work with 5 books and I have 25 variables declared. One for one book, the one for the second book. That's not how you do. You use a loop. Okay. So here, so use an array to store the numbers. Declared named constants for the size of the array and the valid numbers allowed in the list. What are the valid numbers allowed? Greater than equal to 0. Very similar to what we just did with the length. Declare arrays locally in methods where required. So I want you to pass parameters and return values. I don't want global arrays. Global means everybody can see and look. I don't want that. Has a method that takes the real numbers from the user, stores them in an array and returns the array. Up to 10 numbers can be stored, can be less than 10 if the user wants to quit before reaching the maximum limit. Think of a valid sentinel value. So if you are only allowing values greater than equal to 0, what could be a valid sentinel value? -1. You can enter negative values into it. -1 can be a valid stopping value. Like end. I thought of an end because end cannot be a name, right? A number in the list should be greater than or equal to 0. Negative numbers are not allowed. Validate the numbers input by the user and store valid numbers only. So if the user inputs -5, don't store it in the array. Tell him, that cannot be stored. So you know how to do that using a while loop. Has a method that takes an array of numbers as an argument and finds the average of all numbers in the list. It returns the average if the list is not empty and otherwise it returns a -1. So -1 goes back if the list is not empty. And you'll say, how will I check that? I've just done it with you. I returned a null when the list was empty. Okay. Use a nested loop within a loop. You will require it. You'll say, where will I require it? When you start doing it, you will think of it. Use an enhanced for loop. So I want you to use a loop inside a loop. That's called a nested loop. You will need it. I know you will, because the outer one is saying keep on reading maximum 10, and inside you are saying it should be a positive number. So it's a loop inside a loop. And I want to see you using an enhanced loop. For printing purposes, it's the easiest to use for a printing. These are the requirements of your in-class lab. Your aim is to complete it and finish it and show it to me before you leave. But since it is your first go, I'll allow you till Thursday office hour to come and show it to me. If you can show it to me to get good. If not, anytime in my office hour, come and show it to me and take your marks. Right? But it exactly has to follow the requirements. So there is no rubric here, nothing here. If something is correct, you get your marks. If something is wrong, you don't get. If the program doesn't compile, don't even bother coming to show me. I'm not looking at a program that doesn't run. Okay, so if there are compilation errors, don't bother. But of course, if you want to learn, you're stuck and you want to learn, come and I'll help you out. But for marks, there are no marks if there are compilation errors. So the program should run smoothly and perfectly like us. If it does, I'm not even checking anything else. Take your marks. Okay, and I'll give you 5% for it. So here are 5% marks. So whatever I have done, they're very similar. You have to do. So start working, ask questions, friends, web, Anju, anybody, right? But at the end of the day, it must be your work. And I'm just before I forget, I'm going to replace the program that the program that I gave you is under programs. It's not under anybody's section now. And I'm going to override that file with the new one that we've just created. So now I'll come ready with a program so that you just have it and you understand it with me. So now I have time. I'm not taking all your 2 hours and 50 minutes. I'm giving you 1.5 hours for sure. Yes. Okay, so you're using a random method in math class. Right? So when you use the random method from the math class, can you open it? Did you take help from, or did you just use it? Okay, so look it up in here. Just go type math and Java. In your look for math in capital, because it's a class. So don't go to stack. Go to where the actual document is. There. Now come down and look for the method you use, the random method. Okay, now click on it. Now look at its definition. It says this method returns a double value. Okay, that's the first thing. It doesn't take any parameters. Notice the empty. So it returns a double value greater than or equal to 0 and less than 1. So it returns your value between 0. That's what it is. Okay. Okay. So we want it from 1 to 10. So it can be helpful, but I'll tell you more. So equal to 0 and less than 1. Not even 1. I should point that out to you. So you use the math random class, right? You took the number, it returns less than 1. So you will never get a 10, even if you multiply by 10. Oh, you added a 1 to it. So now when you use this class, you have to keep in mind what is returned. A real number from 0 to 1. What do you want? From 1 to 10. So you have to take this number, you will have to multiply it by 10 and then add 1 to get your answer. So how you called it was wrong was the first thing. That's okay. You can pass it and you can pass. You cannot, because it returns a real number. Then you will have to multiply it by, so it's a float, but you want an integer. So you have to take that random, multiply that 10, add 1 to it, convert it into an 8, and then store it. Okay, so keep the int variable that it was? Okay. So now let's come on the right hand side, put an int in front of the math. The word int. Yeah, put the rest in brackets. Okay. So what you're saying is whatever is returned to me, I'll convert it into an int. Okay, but now even now the answer, that's not the right answer anymore. So we have to take that math dot random, multiply by 10, so both sides are right. Multiply by 10, and then add a 1. Okay, now what does it say? Oh, the int has to be put in brackets, not the in Java. The int, not int, just the word is in brackets. And then we do this last one. Or you know what, because we are doing math with it, we can do that also. If it's clear to you, it's fine. But since it's kind of an expression, but Bedmar says I take this, multiply by 10, and then convert it to. Now you have a random number between one. The solution I gave you was using the random class, which was a little easier than this, because you have to go in multiply by 10. So you have done that. So if you look at my solution, that's one way, and this is the other way, and so over. I went to random because I knew I could do it. That was easier just because it's a random, but maybe he was familiar with this. So the solution of the loops is already on Blackboard. It was posted on Blackboard, I think I can't remember, Friday or Saturday I posted. It's already there. So now if you have the time and the inclination to learn, look at the solution, and again you can come back and ask me questions. Right? With this one also, I'll put the solution up after Thursday. Okay, so that you can look at it. So I'll work with you. So learn from your friends, learn from wherever. Now you have the option of collaborating and learning from each other. So you can't complain. Do whatever you like. But when you come to me and show me your work and you can't answer my question, then there are no marks. So you can take a break if you like. And I'll take a break for lunch, sure. But I'm around. In this sense, I'll be back. I'll have my lunch and I'll be back. Okay. So if you've copied it, everybody has copied the question. Can I again hide it? I'm just hiding it from the other section. I can start making 2 of the same labs now. Okay, now it's hidden. I'll see how the class is going, and then maybe you can submit before Thursday, but then show me any time, whatever time suits you. Okay? That way I know you've done your work. Thank you.